Says it's the turtles on your top for me. Reminds me of my late dad.
Mm.
That's dope. Yes, I got this top while on vacation a few years ago in St. Thomas, so I loved it.
I like it. It's a good color on you too.
Thank you. Hey Joker, hey Boo.
Miss Sonia.
All right, guys, we'll be getting started in about two minutes, so just hang tight.
We have a friend in here, and she likes this song, so I'm gonna play it. It's one of my favorite Jimmy songs, though.
Okay. Oh, Curly in the beat. She's vibing.
After all the cats under the boxes and the clowns all gone to bed.
Soul's in here already, right?
You can hear
Yes.
Yeah, I think I see him. Okay.
on down the street. Footsteps dressed in red, and the wind whispers Mary. A broom is dreary.
Thank you guys for joining. We're getting started in about one more minute.
60 seconds.
Somewhere a queen is weeping. Somewhere a king has no wife. The wind it cries.
Hey Lex. Abdul, I imagine you on a beach.
Say it again.
I said, I imagine you on a beach playing your guitar.
I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm going to the beach tomorrow with my guitar. Yeah. Going down.
Do it.
It's going down.
See, I knew it. I felt the vibes. I knew it.
You know what's funny is like I'm actually learning how to play this song on an acoustic, and I plan on playing it at the beach. So it's going down.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Big D, what's happening, man?
All right, lovies. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
So, good evening, lovies, and welcome. Welcome back to On the Spectrum broadcast. We're on episode number 6. Cannot believe it already. Right. The time is just flying by. Some of you guys have told us in your DMs that y'all want to see 2 shows a week. Some of y'all say y'all want a show every day. I'm like, hold up now. We got to make money too. Hold up.
Unless you guys want to pay us on here, we'll do this all the time. Pay us.
Right? I mean, come on now. Pass around the little donation basket. No, low-key, I was taking a quip at somebody else. Anyway, so we're going to get right into it, you guys. Episode 6 is The Purpose-Driven Man. And this is a deeply personal topic to me because I feel like in the Black community, not all of us, but a huge portion of us are kind of lost, you know, and I'm sure you guys have felt it too. You feel like we're kind of living in disarray, some chaos, and we're vibrating on a much lower level than we used to.
Yeah.
You know, our women are wanting to be the men want to be women. It's like who's taking care of whom, who's being kept, who's leading us forward. And so you have this layer in a shit cake of disarray and confusion. So with that being said, when Abdul and I were talking about this topic, I didn't even let him tell me potential guests that he wanted to bring because I already knew who we had to bring. There was literally no one else that was better suited for this show than my friend and the big brother I've always wanted, Soul Immortal. So we're going to bring him in. We're going to go ahead and bring him in right now.
There he is.
And get this conversation started.
Yes.
Perfect.
And before we roll, I would like to kind of just throw at you all that this is kind of a topic that's near and dear to my heart, myself as well. I know you all have heard me speak about my hymn program on this platform specifically. I actually spoke with Soul the last time we talked, and I mentioned to him that I kind of wanted him to be a part of the hymn program. So you all will be hearing a lot about that coming up soon. So without further ado, welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Soul Immortal. Y'all give him some hearts. Run up the hearts. Run up the hearts.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it, brother, man. Man, I'm honored to be on here, man. I'm telling you, I've been watching every week, and it's like I'm getting addicted to it, brother. Y'all done a phenomenal job.
We appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man. We appreciate
Thank you so much. So we're going to hop right into it. So for those in the audience who do not watch your YouTube channel and don't know who you are, can you kind of introduce yourself and give us a little background of the journey that your channel has taken over the last 5 years?
Yeah, well, my channel has done some odd things. You know, when I first started my YouTube channel about 5 years ago, it was the original channel, Immortal Mindz. And the thing is, when I first started YouTube, my objective was to talk about what I'm talking about right now. You know, that lasted about a month. And the thing is, I quickly gravitated to the, quote unquote, red pill, side of YouTube, right? And the thing is, it was healthy for me because what I didn't understand is I was going through a healing stage. So for like the next 2 or 3 years, I was making nothing but red pill content. I was frustrated. I was venting. And then, I took almost, 8, 9 months, maybe a year off to kind of just find myself and heal. And that's when I came back and started the new channel, Immortal Mindz Conversation with Soul. And the reason I did that is because I was aware that my old audience, probably most of them wouldn't attach to my new message. So I wanted to give them a chance to come on over. And so the last year and a half, just coming on 2 years maybe, that's where I've been on the Conversation with Soul side. And my mission right now is simply to enlighten brothers. It's simply to show brothers that we are creating our own lives. It's simply to, bridge the gap of knowledge. A lot of things that took me 40 years to learn, I should have learned at 20. So now my mission in life is to make sure the guys that are 20, 21, 25 are learning what I know now. So that's where I'm at right now.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I love that. And so, on our broadcast, we do like to keep it predominantly about the Black community. So even though all of these questions relate to men and women of all races, my questions are targeted more towards our Black men. So over the last 20 years, we'll just stick with 20. What changes have you noticed about the physicality, the mentality, and just all that of our Black men?
Well, I can easily say that, the mentality or the mindsets of men, there are some pros and cons. I know one thing that I noticed that's different, with us as opposed to our fathers and our grandfathers, they seem to be more problem solvers. We seem to be more of a complaining type generation, and I'm not saying that there aren't men online that are problem solving. There are a lot of men. But on any given day, you can get on social media and just hear a grown man whining about something without offering a solution. And I think that's normal. I know one thing that's different from the generation before us is, we don't hold family up high like we used to. No. I tell a lot of younger guys all the time, I say, when I was like, 15, 16 in my teenage years, it was common for a biological mother, biological father to be in a household. The whole block was like that. I said, now, man, it's the opposite. If you see that, it's rare. So family, family isn't held as high, and there are reasons for that. But one advantage I think we do have over, the men before us, I think we've tapped into a high level of spirituality. Back then, if it wasn't told on Sunday mornings at the church or Wednesday evenings at Bible study, it was null and void. Now I think our generation and guys behind us are willing to look at some of the philosophers of old, to read some of the literature that was once forbidden. And I think due to that, we're expanding outside of the church walls,
Yes.
As far as physicality, that's funny because, I think about the old man that grew up on my block, man. There was a guy across the street from me named Mr. Jernigan. I mean, he planted a couple of acres of watermelon fields until he died in his 90s.
Wow.
I think about the old men that was still pouring concrete in 70s and 80s. I think that time is gone. I think that part of our physicality, I don't think it's more that we're not able. I think it's that, due to technology, due to advances and other things, men just aren't built for that anymore. Yeah. I mean, you rarely see young men cutting wood and doing physical labor. I mean, just think what it's going to look like in another 10, 15 years. Everything's going to be automated. And a man, when he hits 35, 40, he's not going to be as agile if he's not, physically in the gym. And then, I'm glad you said emotional maturity. I think that's very huge. One thing about the men of old, 20 years ago, they had this toughness that was needed, back then. And one thing, I think that toughness, it carried over to the men of now. But the thing is, the drawback to that is, over the last 20 years, we've gone through a lot of stuff. You see a lot of men that have been raised in single parent households. You look back at what the movies and the music did in the 90s, and we're in a different place where that toughness now is working against us. Now I feel like men need to lower those walls so we can heal.
Yes.
It's almost like now we're too tough to heal. I think about what it's like growing up in a single parent household, and I'm telling you, even in the best of households with a single parent, even in the healthiest situation, there's going to be some toxicity coming out of that. And again, a lot of guys need to just learn to lower that wall a little bit so we can correct it and heal.
I'm in 100% agreement with you that I felt like, and I mentioned this before, that as men, our responsibility at one point was to be that knight in shining armor, to come and rescue our families, to take care of our households, to be the one, a martyr at times, even to go lay our life on the line, to die for our families. And that didn't require as much emotion, it didn't require as much intellect. And now that we've progressed into an intellectual state, right, where, to be you don't need physical labor as much anymore. You don't need to die on the sword per se, right? Now we have to think a little bit. And so now, and I mentioned this before, what do we do now as men? Like, where do we go? Like, what is our purpose? It's researching all that, healing ourselves, like you mentioned, and then trying to understand, what do we do next? What's the next step for us?
Absolutely. Monique says, I experienced all that growing up in the home with my father as a contractor. My childhood was so traditional. Agreed for sure. Yep. And so swinging off of what you said, Abdul, with heightened intellectual and, in my opinion, a lot of pseudo intellectualism. Yep. So what do you feel about the high value and alpha male movement in today's climate? Not just the dating climate, but just in the masculine space, period. And then also, for men that qualify themselves as these alpha, high value type of men, what do you think our men should be focusing on instead of just this label?
Well, I think a lot of things, come to be due to the trends on YouTube. Once something hits YouTube and one or two videos are made, it becomes a trend and everyone wants to attach themselves to it. I remember that when the alpha male energy came through. My thing with men referring to themselves as alpha male or alpha men, I think the first or the primary way you can tell that a man is not an alpha is a man that refers to himself as an alpha. That's almost like a man referring to himself as the GOAT. And I think outside of Muhammad Ali, I think outside of Mayweather, those are the only two that we really accept that being said. But you never hear a man saying he's the GOAT. It's kind of like saying, when a man says he's alpha, it's like, that lets me know you're not alpha. Yep. But the thing about guys that stand on this is usually it's kind of like what you said a second ago, V. There's a pseudo aggressiveness. You know what I'm saying? There's a constant need to beat their chest when really being alpha is silent. Being alpha is really back burner. I remember when I was in the military, I had a few drill sergeants, and all of them were barking. The one that had the most dominant energy was the smallest one and the quietest one. When he said something, he just had that energy behind it. You know what I mean? So that's what alpha is. And a lot of guys don't get that. They think if they scream the loudest, if they say a certain number of curse words, then now they're accepted as alpha, and that's not true. Yeah. When it comes to high value men, I just made a video about that today. And my thing is, I understand, guys and the way society works and the way that the majority of women look. But my thing is, when it comes to high value, in my opinion, it seems like that's a term to take away from masculinity. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's mankind putting too much energy in how much money it makes, as opposed to what makes that man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I know I was watching a video. I was watching on O'Shea Duke's page a few weeks ago. He had something that said, like the top 7 or 8 billionaires, their wives have left them. And in my opinion, my way to address that was, I said, my theory, I think just the world is shifting. I think women are just becoming more attracted to a man's, dominance and masculinity as opposed to his bank account. You know what I mean? I think the world is just slowly shifting there. And in my opinion, this moves to point out what a high value man is, and having the bag and doing. I think it's just going away, one, against our true nature, and it's just going against this resetting of the world, Well, but when it comes to, I'm sorry, brother, go ahead.
I had a question based off of what you said. Mm-hmm. You said the world is shifting, and there is more of an attractiveness to the man that is truly dominant versus the man that just has a big bank account. My question to you, in society today, do more men, in your opinion, are more men that are dominant, do they tend to have a bigger bank account, or do those men tend to not? What's your opinion on it?
I agree with that. I think that it goes, when a man is in his masculinity, I don't think that man has an issue with getting the bag or being the type of man he needs to be, or being a protector or the provider. It almost goes hand in hand. And the reason I say that is because, over time, the more I tapped into my masculinity, I became more successful. But the thing is, when I look at the value of me, it's still not my bank account. It's still the source from which I came. It's still the source that created it, as opposed to, because if you don't look at it like that, then anybody can be, if anybody gets a lotto pick, anybody inherits money, now they're considered high value, when it's not really based on their values, morals, and principles, or who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. I tend to think, I've seen some men that have money, and they were just really good at what they did, but it didn't necessarily translate to you being a leader of men. The way I see it is, if you can lead men, right? If you can step in front of men, and I'm not talking about women, because I think a lot of men get in front of women, and I can spit some examples out there, but they appeal to the romantic side that appeals to women, right? But I'm talking about, can you get in front of men and lead men in a direction that they need to go in? And to me, that is a true dominant figure, right? More of an alpha male, in my opinion.
I agree, man. I agree 100%. Yep. And then when you look at these men in relationships, in my opinion, when I see alpha and high value, I kind of see them on opposite ends, because it seems like just two extremes, or it can be. If a man is over here beating his chest, and on the other end he's saying, my money is my value, it can throw the balance of a relationship off. So when I see these two men in relationships, it's a high probability that there's going to be problems, because there's a lack of balance in my opinion.
Of course. Of course, I agree 100%.
Absolutely. T. Dubber says alphas don't speak all the time, so when they do, they are heard. Night 23 says all action in silence. Joker says the meanest dogs don't bark. That's true. That's true.
Very true.
T. Dubber again says if a man is not balanced, everything else not gonna get it.
Yeah.
Derek says the banks play such a small part. I agree, Soul.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So talking about our young men, for example, because the Black community, we have a particular set of issues that kind of plague us. And a lot of our young men, they're not growing up with father figures. They don't have nurturing mothers. They don't have reliable mentors. So what would you say to some of them that are feeling stagnant in life and they don't know where to go, where they should start?
You know, what I would like to say first about that is I think, you know, I think we really need to take a hard look at the root cause of why we're in that situation. And I think that, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I was interviewing Elliot Holst a few days ago, and he said that, you know, the majority of problems we're having will be solved if the family came back together. You know what I mean? And I agree with that. I think that a lot of things we're dealing with is due to, you know, a man, you know, a young man not seeing either having his mother in the house or his father in the house, and that's where the balance goes off. But what I would say to, you know, a young man that's in the world and now he's looking for that guidance, the first thing I would say is try to latch on to someone close. You know, there's a lot of young men in the neighborhood that when I'm outside, you know, doing some yard or whatever, they'll stop by, we'll chop it up for 5 minutes. Everyone has that man within range. Everyone maybe, you know, possibly has an uncle or you know, again, a man in the neighborhood that they can latch on to those that are close. You know, one thing that, you know, young men have an advantage of that we didn't have 20 years ago, of course, was social media. I mean, any man can pick up a cell phone right now, go to YouTube and find some guidance. Right. You know, the danger of that is, you know, he's also going to be presented with the path that's going down the wrong way too. But again, you know, he has access to social media. So men that are speaking knowledge, men that are trying to, you know, show guidance, they're accessible. I know one thing that helped me out tremendously. I think I was around 23, 24, maybe 25. I dove heavy into the book of Proverbs. And I'm telling you, for a man without a father, Proverbs does numbers. You know, my partner put me on to it, man. I read Proverbs from front to back, and it just changed me. You know, that's why I learned about the Proverbs 5 woman. You know what I'm saying? Well, I never would have known about that dangerous woman that exists. So, you know, I would say Proverbs. And last, I would definitely say just to go within. You know, the silence by far is where the most information is going to be, where the most guidance is going to be. When I say the silence, I mean just learn, you know, cut the television off, cut the radio off, cut the XM off, cut all this extra off, and just be able to sit still. You know, stay outside the club, maybe not date for a few weeks, few months, and just sit still in your own energy. And if you sit there long enough, you'll start hearing that voice. You know, your higher self will start talking to you. You know, and it'll guide you. If nothing else, that's the best way to go.
Right. I agree. I think that, you know, we talked on our pre-show, and in like I think you mentioned, I think Vicky told me that you kind of took yourself on some journeys, right? Some maybe hiking into the mountains. I know myself, I did that myself. I went on a vision quest, right? And so one of the things that I try to express to these young men that we talk to is to do that, is to go somewhere by yourself and sit with yourself. The problem that I think a lot of these young men have is that they that's uncomfortable. And then not just young men, I think young women have this problem too, but it is very uncomfortable at times if you've been so indulged in social media and TV and even in your own life and family structure, having to deal with your own demons at times can get a little uncomfortable. It's not easy, but if you can bear yourself, right, then you can hear yourself, and that self can lead you, like you mentioned. So I'm in 100% agreement with you. I had a question though. You said something about the Proverbs 5 woman. Can you explain that a little bit? Yeah.
So you know, there's a Proverbs 31 woman. It talks about the virtuous woman. You know, about you know, it just kind of goes through how this woman is going to be, you know, operating on a daily basis, how she'll be looked at in public, the whole spiel. Well, Proverbs 5 is the opposite of that. And that's kind of what I refer to when I say the 5 and 95%. You know, I say the 5% is the virtuous woman, and the 95%, which is the majority, is a Proverbs 5 woman. And in Proverbs 5, I think 1 through 8, 1 through 16, maybe, it just talks about this woman. It talks about the trait of this woman. It says things like, you know, this woman, you know, her man will pretty much be off at work, be off at war or whatever, and she'll be inviting guys to her door, inviting guys over. And it says, by all means, never entertain this woman. It said this woman's path leads straight to death. You know what I mean? And when I read that several years ago, and I woke up, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and realized that the previous 8-10 years of my life, I was living that. I could read Proverbs 5, and I was like, that's the life I've been living. I could literally feel myself, you know, going to the depths of hell spiritually due to the relationship I was in. So that's when I put together The Beautiful Faces of Evil, and I broke that whole thing down, what it was like, you know, going into their relationship and what it was like coming out of it, man.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I love that. It really is an amazing video. So I'll send you the
I
link
appreciate it.
after the show. Absolutely. So in one of your videos titled Success, How I Hacked Life's Code, you talked about the importance of suffering in order to elevate your mind to the next level. And you also talked about self-induced suffering. You spoke on semen retention, and you also spoke on fasting. Can you kind of dive more into that?
Yeah, you know, like when I think about my initial quote unquote transformation, I'm talking about when I going from birth to when I first said something is not right. You know what I mean? You know, when I was in my 20s, there came a point in time where I said, you know, this is not what it's about. Like life is cool, but if I'm just here to pay taxes and work and do this, you know, go through this stagnant life, I said this is boring. Like I should have just stayed wherever I came from, because this is not what it do, you know. And I just prayed. And I said, you know what? I said, God, if this is what it is, that just I don't even want to be here. And it sent me through. You know, in other words, I started, you know, desiring higher pieces of knowledge, and it sent me through a whirlwind. I made a number of videos about, you know, I got divorced and I lost my job on the same day within an hour, you know, and that was just my world going through a reset. But what happened after that, you know, you know, when we talk about suffering, I went to a point where I hit the bottom. You know, I no longer wanted to live, and I was actually about to take my life, you know, at some point in time. And looking back on it, this is what I understand. You know, I had so much in me, you know, religion growing up, faith of other people, beliefs of my grandparents, that what God was trying to show me, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't even listen because of what I already knew. So what the universe did was took me to rock bottom. And when I was getting ready to take my life, I'm gonna tell you where I was. When I was getting ready to do that, I walked around with a gun in my hand. I had lost all my religion. I had lost all my faith. I had belief in nothing. I was done. And that's where God was trying to get me. It was like, you know what, now that I got you here, it's like now you can hear me. You know, there's a saying something like, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear or something. That's that moment I had. And once I got to a blank slate, then it was like the universe just started pouring in me. So I'm like, now I understand, you know, the suffering. So when you talk about fasting or self-induced suffering, you got to understand what fasting is. You know, we can talk about the health benefits of fasting, and if you look at it close enough, you know, fasting once at some point it starts to heal the body. You know,
Yeah,
and in my personal opinion, I think fasting will cure, if not everything, pretty much all of it. That's my belief. But then you have to look at the second phase of fasting, and that's when the body starts going into like a shutdown mode. It's actually preparing for death. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what you're doing, what you're forcing down your body's throat is that manual separation. I know there's a Bible verse that says something like, you know, you separate from the body, you're one with the Lord, or something. I know I'm butchering that up. You know, so you know, so that's really all you're doing. So when people fast to get this spiritual enlightenment, that's all they're doing. Yep. They're manipulating their body to say, you know what, okay, you're getting ready to pass away. Let's start going to this spiritual side, and that's when you tap in. You know,
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Do you feel as if boys/men go through phases in their life of this type of, like, you know, I have to heal myself, I have to cleanse myself? Do you feel as if men do that?
You mean like on a spiritual level or like a physical body?
Spiritual. We'll say spiritual.
Well, I think so. Because, you know, when I look at, from my 20s up to, through my 30s, I spiritually, I was contaminated, man. I had been involved with certain type women. I had done certain type things, and I needed a reset, And the only way that I can think about that reset is one, filling my mind with new material, new books, new people. But man, I had to shock my body. Yeah. I had to shock my mind, man. And fasting has always been it for me. It's a hard reset,
right. I agree.
Yeah, I think most men hit that point, man.
I went through some phases myself, right? I got deep into some books by Robert Moore. I even read all of the 3 books by Rollo Tomasi. And I got really into understanding the psyche of the man, right? All of the archetypes. And what I found was they said every 12 years, a boy or a man goes through a process of needing to initiate itself. They call it initiation process, of needing to initiate himself into whatever he's becoming, right? And so from age of 12, between the age of 25, and then of course 36, etc., you have to find yourself 3 things: a safe space, an elder, and a process, whatever that process is. Like, as an example, you mentioned you took yourself through some fasting. I went on a vision quest and fasted there, obviously, but you do have to do this self-induced, I got to get myself to this point of almost death, right? And as you come out of that process, you as a man can now look back and say, like, I'm good. I can survive. Like, me and my creator, we took ourselves to the brink of death. And now I am back into this, the world, and I've taken myself through this process. But much like you, I saw myself go through a lot of that stuff and had to figure that out as I went through it. But kudos to you on that.
Yeah, it's definitely healing, man.
Yeah,
it's healing.
It is. I agree.
And then you mentioned the semen retention. Semen retention is a completely different monster. But and a lot of guys make content on semen retention, but in my opinion, a lot of them are lacking the back end of the knowledge because all you hear guys talk about, semen retention and become a better man, and that's true. That's true. Once you bring that energy up, you can redirect that, that focus and build and become a better man. But to really understand semen retention, you first have to understand the dynamic between a man and a woman. Like you have to understand how that works. You have to understand that when everything is properly, when it's healthy, a woman coming into a man's life is adding a supercharger to his life. It's meant to magnify him. Because women are naturally, cultivators. So when guys talk about semen retention, for one, they leave that out. But them leaving that out really takes away from what they're getting ready to present. Because you have to look at this. The reason men should practice semen retention is so that a single man can get that same supercharger boost from himself. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Well, married man can have relations with his wife can reciprocate and build his life, kind of like Napoleon Hill in Outwitting the Devil. The devil said, how did you get to this point? Napoleon was saying, how did I get up to this point where I can communicate with you? And he said, because of your wife. Like you're in a super, so a lot of guys don't get that. But what a man can do if he's single or if he's not with a woman, he can take that sexual energy that builds up, that quote unquote horniness, and he can transfer that and become a stronger man, become a smarter man, and build in this third dimension. Or he can transmute it. He can take that same energy, take it to the spiritual side, and now he's just as equal as that married man.
Yes.
That's what most guys don't get. Yes. When he takes it and he's meditating, and what a man will notice that if he's real horny, when he's meditating on a regular basis, that horny levels it'll go down because that energy is going. Because you have to understand that emotion is what creates. Yes. So if you're dispensing that emotional energy over to it's like you're creating now. So that semen retention is powerful. But the conversation we should be having more than semen retention is how to make relationships healthier so you can get that same effect in a healthy relationship,
I 100% agree. I 100% agree with that. And I know you speak to mainly men, but what can you lend to our female counterparts on what they can do to assist men with regards to that?
You know what I think for women, if I was to speak to women, what women need to do is make their men comfortable with having a conversation about love languages, because that's how a man receives it. A lot of men are like, oh, my girl, she ain't reciprocating, she ain't doing this. A lot of times she don't know how to. If a woman doesn't know physical touch or words of affirmation or acts of service is the way you get energy, she can't reciprocate. I know for me, acts of service is huge for me. A woman can do the smallest thing for me, And brother, it's magnified.
Yeah.
It puts me on a high horse. So if a woman knows how to give back, you know, and a lot of guys, it kind of goes back to that alpha, you know, toxic masculinity. A lot of guys need to lower that wall a little bit and be like, hey, you know, babe, like I like it when you do X, Y, Z. Like that's how you fill my cup. You know, if that conversation is had, brother, that's when we'll start rebuilding. But we gotta get past the things that are separating that from us.
Man, thank you for that. I definitely agree with that. That's good information.
I love that. So let's say the men have detoxified themselves from toxic relations with women from the past, you know, these 95% women, and they fasted, they started meditating, and now they want to pursue a purpose-driven life. So what role would you say the woman plays in a purpose-driven life?
You know, I'll be honest, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that I was over the age of 40 before I could even answer this question. And what I'll say is, if a man isn't purpose driven, or if he's not, you know, on his way to his goal, he really has no business even entertaining a woman. And I'll tell you why. But because if he isn't tied into his purpose, any woman that comes into his life is going to get on his nerves. And I'll tell you why. It's because even on a subconscious level, he's looking for that purpose. And the fact that he can't find it, a woman is just going to be a quote unquote distraction from him finding it. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the main things. And then I would say, you know, when it comes to how a woman can fit in a purpose-driven man's life, you have to understand that a woman she's not meant to come in and be a star player. You know, like you know, she's coming in to be a helpmate. Yeah. So her filling that role as a helpmate is what a man needs, you know. Yes. And I'm telling you, I went through a stage, a small number of years ago where I was like, you know what, I don't want a woman. Like a woman doesn't fit in my world, and that was my reality. But the thing is, I hadn't tied into my purpose yet. The moment I tied into my purpose, I'm telling you, and this is what 2 years ago when I really identified what I was supposed to be doing, or what I wanted to do. I instantly saw room for a woman. I instantly saw how she could fit in my life. And it's like, man, you know what? Now I understand. So now when we have the conversation about long-term commitments, about wives, it's like now I can participate in that conversation because now I understand how it's supposed to work. But before, you know, I couldn't do that. I'm gonna tell you one thing that now that I understand as far as how a woman can fit. And this is something I really just learned. I'm a single father, right? I'm a single father. It's just me and my son. So what that does is it puts me in an energy where I have to find balance between the feminine and the masculine side because it's just me here. I have to balance. There's no way you can't go full stream one way if there's not nothing counterbalancing you. So what I noticed is when a very feminine woman comes in my life, without me even being aware of it, it puts me in a different energy. I interact different with society. I interact different with my son. And I was like, why is this? It's because she's gone to the other end. She's on the other end of that scale. So now I can go to the far right and be full masculine. Yes. So that's what I need from a woman. I need her to give me balance. Amen. It's like be my superpower. It's like I'm trying to go out there to my fullest potential. Go to the other end so we can balance this thing out. Right. So that's one thing I need from my wife. That a woman in my life is that feminine energy, if nothing else, you know.
Well, I want to say this, and this is something that I do try to tell my young men. You hit a great point, but what you said before was big, and I'll quote the Bible just because I know people reference it a lot when speaking about Adam. The first thing God gave Adam, I ask that often when I talk to young boys or even young women. I say, what was the first thing God gave Adam? They usually say Eve, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not true. The first thing that God gave Adam was work. They gave him work. And so, you know, he said to till the garden, you take care of this land. And then he provided Eve. And so to say all that, men need to find their purpose. What am I doing? You know, what am I here for, right? I'm on social media a lot, and what I listen to is young men talk about how to please a woman, how to take care of a woman, you know, and it irritates me because that's not your purpose. You're not here, no disrespect to the women who feel this way, but you're not here to take care of a woman. You're here to accomplish something, and whatever it is you're here to accomplish, then you're given the responsibility of a woman. to take on so she can assist you in that, right? Not that women don't have a purpose themselves, but it just tends to align that way. When a man has a purpose, a woman can assist him in that. Everything works better, which goes to back to your point of family. If we can get back to family, we can find our way back.
I agree. It's weird you say that, because it sounds funny to say that, hey, eventually we focused on this purpose. He shouldn't be thinking about it. It sounds offensive. It could be offensive to some, but when you think about the far majority of women, if not all women, think about the women that have men that are focused on them. They're so turned off. Back in my, I call it blue pill stages, when I was dating and I had no purpose. I could tell that women wasn't feeling me as much, and I was like, why is this? Like television taught me to bring you flowers every 5 seconds. It taught me to do all these things. And I was like, why aren't you liking this?
Right.
And when I said, you know what, man, I'm tired of trying. I'm going to do my own thing and focus on my goals. As soon as I did that, all those women just rushed in. And I was like, what is that? That's what a woman wants. If she can't spend but so much time with you because you're on that grind, brother, she's good.
I agree.
She's good. She's good, man.
I agree. The nature, and you said it, the nature of a woman is to improve whatever it is you have. You give her a house, she'll give you a home. You give her semen, she'll give you life. Like, she's a multiplier. She will take all these things and give you more. If you don't have anything to give her,
yeah,
you doing?
Yeah,
you don't need that responsibility.
Now she has no purpose. Now both of y'all are sitting there miserable.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Or you're pushing her to step into a more masculine space that's not even natural for her, trying to lead the household. And now we can see what these kind of relationships are looking like.
Yes.
You've got these quiet, meek men cowering behind the woman, which to me is just insane.
Well,
but we're seeing it more and more.
I will also say this, right? And this is kind of to the women, also to the men, but a purpose is not just to get money, right? That's not what we're talking about when we say purpose, right? When we say purpose, it's what are you attempting to accomplish that you can leave behind on this planet for your children, if that's what you decide to have, right? Are you leaving honor? Are you leaving intellect? Are you leaving that behind for your children to carry on long after you're gone?
I agree with that. The thing is, for me, purpose is exactly what you said. Purpose is not to get money. Money is a byproduct of finding purpose. And for the longest, I had it backwards. Man, I was chasing the bag, working 10 times as hard. But when I noticed that, when I got to the point where I said, you know what, I just want to chase what I am and be more of what I am and expand as a man. Brother, there's a level of peace that I never even knew existed. And once I tapped into that, when I thought that, hey, you know what, this type, me tapping into this, my purpose won't give me a lifestyle. Whether you be a mate, anything you tie into, anything you connect the source with and you pour into, brother, it'll provide whatever you want it to provide, man.
I agree 100%. I'm in agreement. I agree.
I love that. You guys, the chat is blowing up. So everyone loves you. They're saying you dropping mad gems. So this is great. Thank you everyone who's commenting in the chat. And so leading into one of our last questions here, let's say the man is trying to pursue his purpose. He's trying to broaden his horizon, read some books. I would love to touch on one of my favorite books that you've mentioned on your channel, which is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. So if you could kind of give us a synopsis of that book and what makes it so powerful and why you think our men should read it.
When I first read that book, I don't know who recommended it. I don't know how I got my hands on it. But when I got my hands on it, I never heard about it. I never heard nobody speak about it. And after reading it, the first, hour or so, I had to sit it down. Because when you get to, the book is broken down. There's a small part about Napoleon talking about his life. It's powerful. But then it goes to the interview with the devil. When I got to the interview with the devil, I had to sit it down. It was that heavy. The gems were that, that powerful. And I had to just soak on it like, am I understanding what I'm reading? But the thing about Outwitting the Devil, it's hard to even explain that the angle it comes from. It opens so many doors. One thing that stood out was purpose. We talk about the purpose-driven man, and it was talking about okay, yeah, all men go after their purpose, but then it talked about it talked about when a man is not on his purpose, then he goes into drifting. And it took me a long time to really understand that. It's like the only way to combat, drifting is to be tied to your purpose. And it took me a couple of years of trial and error to identify what that was. But once I understood that, I locked on. But you can take that same ideal, right, and apply it to relationships. If a relationship, a man and woman come together, if they don't have a purpose, like this is our goal, our family goal is to be here, it's to die and hand this to the kids, like you said, bro. If there's no purpose, that's when drifting comes active in a relationship. That's when people start cheating and start doing all this stuff. I'm telling you, and I just learned this. If there's a purpose in a relationship, you really don't have to worry about that. You don't have to, as much, you know what I mean? Because it's like now we're tied to something. That's what Napoleon was saying. Like if you want to avoid the cheating, you have to have some end goal to be working toward. So that's one thing I took away from that. The other part I took away from that which was one of the heaviest portions, was when it talks about hypnotic rhythm. And when it talks about hypnotic rhythm, I read that for like a year, and I was like, I get what it's saying. It was like, if a man does something, for a period of time, he making back away from that thing. If he does it a little longer, it's kind of hard. But if he does it for so much time, there's no way he can come out of there. You know what I'm saying? And I read that. I said, you know what? I get that. I looked at some of the negative parts of my life and said, you know what? I see what he's saying. But once I bridged the gap between Outwitting the Devil and the Bible, I understood that what he was talking about with hypnotic rhythm is prayer. Really, hypnotic rhythm is prayer. Because think about this. When you think about the Bible, we think about going to church and they say, you know what? Let's bow our heads and pray. Oh, Father God, bestow blessings upon us. That's not prayer.
Right.
That's not what prayer is. Those are simply affirmations, right? Prayer is like when the Bible says, when the Bible says, pray without ceasing. What that means is prayer is actually going into a state. Like if you say, you know what, I'm an alcoholic and I'm done with this alcohol, I'm finished with it. I'm now sober. And you go into this sober state, you're supposed to go into that state and never come out of it. That's how you pray without ceasing. So when I look at what Napoleon was talking about hypnotic rhythm, he was talking about the opposite end of that. So prayer is like going into a state and never come out. So like when Napoleon said, once you keep this habit on for so long, you can never come back out of that. Right. It's the same way with creation. Once you create this new version of yourself and you just keep on it and you never come out of it, it becomes who you are. You can't change it no more. Yeah. So man, that's one of the powerful things I took from that, man, is it was almost like hypnotic was almost like it was just labeled the dark side of what prayer is, like the opposite end of it, man. Yeah. But yeah, that book is powerful. There's so many jewels in there. Another part that I love is when it talks about man's ability to control his sexual appetite and how that relates to his money. And it says a man that controls his sexual appetite, it says he will never see poverty. You know what I'm saying? And I thought about that. I thought about my life. I thought about when I was, in periods of my life where it was like, I got to be with somebody. I got to date. I got to be sleeping with it. My money was always gone. But once I control that urge,
because they cost
a lot. That's why. They cost a lot. What? They do cost a lot. Facts. But you know what I was doing when I controlled it? When I can entertain a woman and say, you know what? Am I feeling her? Am I not feeling her? Do I like her? But I'm telling you, I can invite women over my house now that I'm feeling, and she could be fine, dying, and I could be like, hey, you know what? Like I'm good. And the thing is, it makes sense now what he was saying. He said a man that can control his sexual appetite will never see poverty. They're expensive to deal with, but what he's really saying is, you gotta go back to what the creative power is. Creative power is emotion. You know what I'm saying? So any man that's in a state where his emotion is all over the place, I gotta sleep with her, ooh, she fine. What he's saying is he's emotionally out of order. Yes. Once you control that emotion, now you have your creative power in your hand. Beautiful. So that's how a man masters sexual, just controlling his emotional energy. Because that's creative power,
Beautiful. So I had one more. I know we're about to end, but I have one more question. I know you do a lot of work with men, right? And and you mentioned the ages of I'm assuming 21 or 25. You want to give them that information. There are a lot of us out here who are obviously beyond that age, but have found ourselves in mentorship positions, have found ourselves in teaching positions. Can you, if you can, give some advice to us men who are in that position, looking to take on these young men from ages 10 to 12 to 13, etc.? What advice can you give in dealing with those young men?
You know what I would say to that, man. One flaw that I had in myself is over the last maybe forever. I've always been the kind of person where I was like, I'm isolated. I don't have any friends. You know, my best friend, my day one that I grew up with, me and him talk about maybe 5 times a year. You know, I saw him a couple of weeks ago. But what I'm getting to is like I think you know, like we talk about iron sharpening iron. I understood that once I started, you know, spending time with other brothers and sharpening that iron, it was like, you know what? Like every single man, whatever stage he's at, is like has something to offer. Like me and you, for example, I have tons I can learn from you, and you can learn from me. That's how we get better as men.
Yes.
So, and I just got to that point, man. You know, the guys I have on Patreon, we have a meeting every week, and we kind of just bounce ideas. And I had no idea how much that built me up, man. So I would think any man in that mentorship position is just when he's not mentoring, to separate himself and put himself around other, you know, sharp men and bounce ideas and fellowship and you know, whether that's a mastermind, whether that's just an energy y'all all have together. And that's how I think that's how we grow faster as men.
Beautiful.
You know,
that's beautiful, man. Thank you for that, brother, because it's true. You're right, 100%.
Yes, absolutely. So we are coming up to the end of our show, but I wanted to say thank you so much. Infinite thank yous for coming on to our show tonight. We are definitely having you back. You already know. We're probably about to have you 11 more times.
I'm here for it. I'm down. I love it.
Yeah, we do. Yes. We appreciate you coming, brother. I know you're a busy man and you have a lot of wealth of knowledge, and so we really appreciate you giving it to us and the people that join. So huge congratulations to you. Thank you to you. I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And before you sign off, where can people find you online if they would like to get in touch with you after the show?
Immortal Mindz, everything. You know, YouTube. Of course, I still have the old channel. Not a lot of activity over there. Immortal Mindz Conversation with Soul is my YouTube. Of course, this is my IG. It's Immortal Mindz on Twitter as well. You can find me at Soul Immortal at immortalminds.com. And that's pretty much it, you know.
Gotcha.
Okay, perfect.
So thank you, brother. We appreciate your time, man.
All right, thank y'all, man. Y'all take care. I thank y'all for having me, brother.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming.
All right, love y'all too, man.
All right. Whew,
wow.
That was good.
Amazing. Thank you guys, everyone who's in the chat, blowing it up with all these positive affirmations. We see y'all. We appreciate you. So wrapping it up, going into our solutions portion, just the purpose-driven man, you know, this could apply to you yourself, or maybe you have a son, a brother, anyone, a very close friend of yours. Give them some of these tips.
Yes.
Maybe talk to them about fasting. Maybe talk to them about taking the solo vision journey, like you talked about, Abdul. Maybe talk to them about semen retention, and maybe some of their issues are stemming from messing around with low functioning, low vibrating women.
I agree.
You know, there's all kinds of things that you could have these conversations and give them somewhere to start, even if it's finding a mentor, even if it's diving into certain books. Maybe instead of reading Zane, maybe you read you know, maybe you read Outwitting the Devil and put down the Zane.
There you go.
So, you know, what else do you have to say, Abdul?
Before we left, I wanted to ensure that I gave the men out there and even the women that are looking to date men 3 points, 3 words, and I wanted to give some definitions to those. The first one is honor. Every man needs a set of codes to live by. Honor for your name, where you came from, your lineage, or whatever you attach yourself to. You must be present, and it must be present in all that you do. The second one is intellect. A man must master the art of thinking, knowing, and understanding. He must educate himself about as much as he can. The last thing is masculinity. He must embody what it means to be masculine. He accepts his aggression, his physical nature, his body, and he must be able to withstand whatever is required of him to protect, provide, create. and he has to master his own physical body in every realm. So with those 3 points, I wanted to leave that to the men out there, and even the women that are looking for men. Make sure they embody these 3 words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys, that concludes episode 6 of On the Spectrum, talking about the purpose-driven man.
Yep.
Please be tuned next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Y'all drop some hearts if y'all want me and Abdul to do the next show together, because I'm going to be in Houston.
Okay. She's going to be here. So we might do it together.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome back to Houston, Vicky. Welcome back.
Yes. So
you
y'all
guys
drop
can
some
also
hearts if
catch,
y'all want to see us do it together.
absolutely. You guys can catch the replay on my channel. Please like, share, comment, all that good stuff. You know, we would like to share this information with as many people as possible. So appreciate you guys for coming. We will see you all again next week, same time, same channel. That's it. We'll see you all next time for On the Spectrum.
We love you guys. Bye.
See ya.